a day, oh, daylight come and me want go home. Work all night and a drink a rum.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Stack banana till the morning come.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Live
6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bunch. Daylight come and me want go home. 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bunch. Daylight come and me want go home.
day is a day, oh.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Okay, so you've heard that song, right? Okay, so this came out about the time that Heartbreak Hotel came out. And it raced up the charts and it made it to number 5 on the best-selling charts. A Mento song from Jamaica, sung by a former nightclub singer who was studying folk music at the Library of Congress. And he came across Irving Bergey. Irving Bergey gave him all these songs and he did that album. But where did Deo come from? Well, Deo was actually called Day Delight. That was the original song. And it was recorded by Edric Connor. Now, Edric Connor was a Trinidad-born singer and actor who lived most of his life in England. Now, this is the original 1952 recording of the song, done 4 years earlier than Belafonte's version. And this is the earliest one we know of. And it was this version that Bergey heard, and with Belafonte's friend, a novelist named Bill Attaway, adopted the song for his hit version. So this is the original version of Deo.
Tallyman, come tally me banana.
Day the light and me want go home.
Me come here fi work, me no come here fi idle.
Day the light and me want go home.
6 and 7 and 8 and a punch.
Day the light and me want go home.
6 and 7 and 8 and a punch.
Day the light and me want go home.
The checker them a check, but them check with caution.
Day the light and me want go home.
Me bag is a block with beer exhaustion.
Day the light and me want go home.
Now give me just a bunch, me a horse with bridle.
Day the light and me want go home. Day the light and me want go home. Day the light and me want go home.
So this song was actually a street cry that was heard in Jamaica, and it was sung by the workers who were loading bananas on boats or unloading them for the citizens of the area. And so this was a ballad or a work song, whichever one you want to call it. Now, the other big hit on Belafonte's Calypso album was this song. So let's see if you know this.
Down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shines daily on the mountain top, I took a trip on a sailing ship, and when I reached Jamaica, I made a stop, but I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston Town.
Okay, so for this song, which was credited to Irving Burgee, as we said, he used the melody to an old West Indian folk song called Iron Bar, which explains how a man feels after a few shots of Jamaican rum. You know, just like a mule, strong but a little bit foolish, okay? So Sam Manning was one of the few Calypso singers I know that did not use one of those crazy nicknames. And Sam Manning recorded the song. He was from Trinidad. He had a natural ability for comedy that quickly established him as a performer in Calypso and West Indian dialect. So Burgee took Iron Bar, slowed it down, wrote a new set of lyrics for it, and changed it to kind of a blissful song about the sights, sounds, and delights of Jamaica. So let's listen to Sam Manning's. This is the original version of Jamaica Farewell, then called Iron Bar.
Iron bar, iron bar, iron bar, iron bar, iron bar, iron bar. Feel as strong as an iron bar. Drink my rum and I tumble down. Don't want no barefoot gal to pick me up. Drink my rum and I tumble down. Don't want no barefoot gal to pick me up.
Drink me rum, I want a barefoot gal to pick me up. He's had a little lot of it, doesn't he?
Iron bar, iron bar, iron bar, iron bar, iron bar, iron bar. Feel as strong as an iron bar. When I drink me rum, I'm just like a mule, just as strong and just as full. Drink me rum, I'm just like a mule, just as strong and just as full. Iron bar, iron bar, iron bar, iron bar, iron bar, iron bar. I feel as strong as an iron bar. Went to the house, the door was locked. I take up a rock and I broke the lock. Went to the house and the door was locked. Take up a rock and I broke the lock.
As you can imagine, by listening to that record, you hear a lot of American jazz in that. So you can see that Calypso music was influencing American music, but it was a two-way street because they were now performing on American jazz instruments. You heard horns there. You heard a clarinet playing kind of a Dixieland-style improvisation around the recordings. That's what Sam Manning did. So Irving Burgee introduced Day-O and Jamaica Farewell to Harry Belafonte, but Irving Burgee was not the father of Jamaican-American music. That occurred earlier than that. The song that really brought Calypso music to America was Rum and Coca-Cola. Anybody know that song? It was a song about GIs in Trinidad during World War II and their interaction with the local women. I won't say any more than that, except that they were, as the lyrics say, working for the Yankee dollar. Okay? Yeah. Well, Rum and Coca-Cola was heard by this man. Anybody know who that is? Maury Amsterdam, old Buddy Sorrell from the Dick Van Dyke Show. He heard it when he was visiting Trinidad and, believing that the song was traditional, published it himself. Well, the song had been published in Trinidad in 1943, written by a guy named Rupert Grant, who used the pseudonym Lord Invader. And there's Lord Invader on the left side. Well, there was a lawsuit that ensued, and Amsterdam lost the case. The song was obviously about prostitutes, but when the Andrews Sisters first recorded it, they were so naive that they didn't realize what the song was really about. And they admitted that themselves in their autobiography. So the Andrews Sisters recorded it in November 1944, and it became their biggest hit, despite being banned by all the major radio networks. Not because of the prostitution angle, but because of the traditional prohibition of promoting alcohol on the radio. So they decided that Coca-Cola was also getting unfair promotion, but the song still became a hit because of jukebox plays and independent disc jockeys, which helped make it into a million-selling hit.
If you ever go down Trinidad, they make you feel so very glad. Calypso, sing and make up rhyme, guarantee you one real good fine time. Drinking rum and Coca-Cola, go down Point Cumana, both mother and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar.
Now this is the sheet music, and you see Maury Amsterdam's name is still on it, so he was able to get the copyright, at least share in the copyright of it. And here is the label, again, a Decca label. So when the Andrews Sisters record became a big hit, Decca decided to get one of their own traditional Calypso artists to record his own version, and used even more risque verses that were not in the original. His name was Wilmoth Houdini, and he recorded it a few months later in early 1945. So let's listen to the remake of Rum and Coca-Cola by a traditional Jamaican. Isn't this interesting? Here's a Jamaican song covered by an American artist, and then a Jamaican artist saw it was a success and re-recorded it himself. So that's what happened with this one.
When the Yankees came to Trinidad, all the native young girls was more than glad, saying GI boys are very nice. They make Trinidad like paradise.
Drinking rum and Coca-Cola, going down Point Cumana, father, mother, and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar.
Money in the land,
The Yankee dollar bill.
out on Manzanilla Beach, GI romance with native peach. Friends, it is a pleasure to see love making under the bamboo tree.
Drinking rum and Coca-Cola, going down Point Cumana, father, mother, and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar.
Money in the land,
The Yankee dollar bill.
now the native girls can cut a rug. You should see them dancing like a jitterbug. They get hip to the Yankee jive. On the dance floor you should see them glide.
Drinking rum and Coca-Cola, going down Point Cumana, father, mother, and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar.
Money in the land,
The Yankee dollar bill.
in old Trinidad when I was there, financial position was very fair. But now in this 20th century, they're spending their money on luxury.
Drinking rum and Coca-Cola.
Just like
Going
us.
down Point Kumana. Father, mother, and daughter working for the Yankee dollar.
Money in the land,
The Yankee dollar bill.
the Andrews sisters and Bing Crosby must take a trip to the West Indies, sit down under the silvery moon and hear the Calypsonians croon.
Drinking rum and Coca-Cola. Going down Point Kumana. Father, mother, and daughter working for the Yankee dollar. The Yankee dollar bill.
Okay, now here's another one that everybody knows. Well, here's the record. Okay, again on Decca Records. Okay, now the next song is one that everybody knows as Sloop John B. You know that song? Calypso song from the Bahamas. It has a long history in popular music. A traditional song from the Bahamas, as we said, that was first heard by a philosopher and Pulitzer Prize-winning cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune by the name of John T. McCutcheon, who learned the song while traveling with his wife in the West Indies. And the next iteration of that song came from Carl Sandburg, the poet who published the song in his landmark book, The American Song Bag, a collection of traditional folk music that was published in 1927. So there's a lot of traditional folk music that the folk musicians like Belafonte and the others were studying. This was kind of the Bible of that kind of music. The earliest recording of the song, and this was the John B. Sayles, 1927. The earliest recording of the song was recorded by a folklorist, Alan Lomax, who discovered Woody Guthrie, who discovered Leadbelly, and he was in the 1930s doing field research in the Bahamas and found a performance by a local group called the Cleveland Simmons Group on Cat Island. So this is the earliest recording we know of the song that is now called Sloop John B. There's the group, and here's what it sounds like.
I saw the John B. said, so hear the men to say, then send for the captain, so let me go home, let me go home, oh let me go home, oh let me go home, my teeth don't break up, I want to go home. Now the captain on the mate get down, then they broke up the people's songs. I'm gonna send for the captain, so let me go home, let me go home, oh let me go home, oh let me go home, my teeth don't break up, I want to go home.
Okay, so the first American group to come across this song and record it were the Weavers. Remember the Weavers? Lee Hayes, there we go, Pete Seeger, Lee Hayes, Fred Hellerman, and Ronnie Gilbert made up the Weavers. And before they were blacklisted for being leftists in the early 1950s, they had a huge hit on Goodnight Irene, which was written by Leadbelly when he was in prison. So the Weavers were the ones that did research in the American Song Bag and found John B. Sayles and Americanized it again for what label?
We come on the sloop John B, my grandfather and me. Round Nassau town we did roam,
drinking all night. We got into a fight.
I feel so break up, I want to go home. So heist up the John B. sails, see how the mainsail's set. Send for the captain ashore, let me go home.
Let me go home.
Let me go home.
Let me go home.
Let me go home. I feel
break up. I want to go home. The first mate, he got drunk, broke up the people's trunk. Constable had to come and take him away. Sheriff John Stone, please let me alone. I feel so break up, I want to go home. So heist up the John B. sails, see how the mainsail's set. Send for the captain ashore, let me go home. Let me go home, let me go home, let me go home, let me go home. I feel so break up, I want to go home. Let me go home, let me go home, let me go home, let me go home. I feel so break up, I want to go home.
Now take a look at the record label here. You see Carl Sandburg's name here, as if he wrote it, and Lee Hayes, who's the gentleman in the middle. Lee Hayes arranged it and took the arrangement, his arrangement, from Carl Sandburg's 1927 version from the American Song Bag, but poor Cleveland Simmons never got anything out of it. And in fact, Alan Lomax, who recorded Cleveland Simmons, is the one who's getting the royalties on it to this day. Alan Lomax, after he died, his publishing company still gets royalties from it. Just for the sake of comparison, this is the version by the Kingston Trio on their, and we'll just play a little bit of it, from their debut album in 1958. They did not learn from Cleveland Simmons. They did not learn it from any Jamaican folk singer or Bahamian folk singer. They learned it from the Weavers version. So we have a second-hand folk music now, and this is the kind of thing that they were doing that helped smooth out and popularize for the mainstream Calypso music beginning in the late 50s.
My grandfather and me, around Nassau town we did roam, drinking all night, got into a fight, well I feel so break up, I wanna go home, so now heist up the John B. sails, see how the mainsail set. Call for the captain ashore, let me go home, let me go home, let me go home. I want to go home, I wanna go home. Why don't you let me go home? Well, I feel so break up, I wanna go home, I want to go home.
Now, what the Kingston Trio and the Weavers did not know is they were continuing the folk tradition. Folk music is communicated orally. And it's the people, not everyone went back to the American Song Bag and recorded that song. People learned to sing the Sloop John B. song by listening to records by the Kingston Trio or by the Weavers. And in the early 1960s was the Kingston Trio record with their harmonies that transferred this song into the rock and roll era. The true mark of an enduring song or an enduring style of music is its ability to be adapted through whatever is currently popular. And that's when this group turned it into another top 10 hit with a different treatment.
We come on the sloop John B., my grandfather and me, around Nassau town we did roam, drinking all night, got into a fight, well I feel so broken, I wanna go home, so hoist up the John B. sail,
same thing happened with many other Calypso songs. Folk singers and arrangers taking songs from either public domain or published by song collectors like Carl Sandburg and Alan Lomax, or those written by native composers from Trinidad and copywriting it for themselves. For our next example, we return to our friend Lord Invader, who wrote Rum and Coca-Cola. Well, apparently, it happened again with a song he had written called Mary Ann, 2 words, M-A-R-Y-A-N-N, a song that was usually played for Carnival, the annual holiday bacchanal. So this is a portion of his original recording of Mary Ann.
Was the holiday, colored and white start to break away. A happy day was the holiday, colored and white start to break away. Everybody joined in the bacchanal, playing their royal carnival, singing all day, all night with Mary Ann. When by the seaside and fishing sand, even little children joined in the band, singing all day, all night with Mary Ann.
Okay, so the next version of this song I want to play was adapted by Edmundo Ros, who was a Trinidad-born band leader who combined traditional music, like the one we just heard, with swing, dance, orchestral arrangements, which were very popular in England, which is where he was living at the time. So here is Edmundo Ros's, a little bit of his version of the song.
She can love like no one can. That's why the boys all love Mary Ann. Mary Ann lives on our street. All the boys, they think she's sweet, and she's nice to everyone, but she gives her heart to none. So all the boys love Mary Ann. Why do the boys love Mary Ann? It's because she can kiss like no one can. That's why the boys all love Mary Ann.
Okay, so there's a crossover song from a Trinidadian who knew that he was doing this specifically for commercial purposes and taking a song from a traditional source and Americanizing it himself. So it went in the other direction here. So Mary Ann finally arrived in the United States in 1957, arranged by Terry Gilkison of his group, the Easy Riders. And Mary Ann, you can see, is now respelled for one reason or another. We don't know why. Maybe it had to do something to do with copyright. Okay, but we'll never know. The song became a huge hit in the United States, and subsequently became part of every folk singer's Caribbean Calypso act. This is what theirs sounded like.
All day, all night, Mary Ann, down by the seaside, sifting sand. Even little children love Mary Ann, down by the seaside, sifting sand. Mary Ann, oh, won't you marry me? We can have a bamboo hut and brandy in the tea. Leave your fat old mama home, she never will say yes. If mama don't know now, she can guess. My yes. All day, all night, Mary Ann, down by the seaside, sifting sand. Even little children love Mary Ann, down by the seaside, sifting sand.
Now, the funny thing about this song is that Most people who know the song still associate it with Harry Belafonte, since he had popularized all the other Calypso songs in the late 1950s. Harry never recorded this one. Never recorded this song, and it was one of the handful of the most popular Calypso songs of all time. But Harry was the performer who popularized more Calypso songs than any other singer on the United States recording scene. On his album Calypso that we pictured before, he popularized what may have been the very first feminist song in popular music. He recorded it early in his career as a folk song, but by 1956 it had changed into a big band charged Calypso.
I say let us put man and a woman together to find out which one is smarter. Some say men, but I say no. The women got the men beat, they should know, and not me. Of the people they say that the men are leading the women astray, but I say that the women of today smarter than the man in every way. That's right, the woman is smarter, that's right. The woman is smarter, that's right. The woman is smarter, that's right. That's right.
Now that was recorded in Los Angeles with a group of top-notch, top-of-the-rank union musicians, jazz musicians like Conrad Gazzo. I don't know if nobody probably has heard of Conrad Gazzo, but nobody could play higher trumpet music than he did, and so he was on there with a virtual big band arranged by a jazz clarinetist named Tony Scott. So truly something that was meant for United States American audiences. Okay, so we hear the original version by an entertainer whose real name was Patrick MacDonald. He called himself Macbeth the Great, and his recording was made in 1945. Not for Decca, but for a small New York label called Guild Records, with a popular Calypso group led by Gerald Clark.
Let us put men and women together to find out which one is smarter. Some say men, but I say no. The women have the men like Papi Show, so not me.
It's the people that say that the men leading the women astray, but I say that the women of today smarter than men in every way.
Ever since the world began, woman was always fooling man. And if you listen to Macbeth attentively, I'm going to show you how the women smarter than we.
So not me. It's the people that say that the men leading the women astray, but I say that the women of today smarter than men in every way.
Samson was the strongest man long ago. No one could have beaten him, as we all know. But when he clashed with the woman on top the bed, she found out his strength was in the hair of his head. So not me.
It's the people that say that the men leading the women astray, but I say that the women of today smarter than men in every way.
Listen what happened to a friend of mine. His girlfriend leave him on a serious grind. He used to support her in luxury, but then the whole thing changed up entirely. So not me.
It's the people that say that the men leading the women astray, but I say that the women of today smarter than men in every way.
Well, look, I had a little girl, I used to treat her fine. She had me going down on the line. I was giving her my money all the time, and she was giving me shots with a friend of mine. So not me.
It's the people who say that the men are leading the women astray, but I say that the women of today smarter than men in every way.
Well, look, I had a little girl in New York City, and she promised to make a baby for me. But when the baby born and I went to see, the eyes was blue, it was a Portuguese. So not me. Some people say that men are leading the women astray, but I say that the women of today smarter than men in every way.
Now, when I heard that last line, I was shocked because Harry Belafonte used to sing "It Was Not By Me," so he took out that whole Portuguese reference. Could have been RCA Victor. That you don't want to attack the Portuguese here. Be careful. Okay, so there was another song that the Kingston Trio popularized on their first album. It was often played around Halloween. It dealt with a bunch of zombies who were so inspired by music played at Carnival that they jumped right out of their graves to help celebrate. So it was called the Zombie Jamboree. So here's a little bit of that one.
Right now, as a point of information, something we didn't know until recently, every year in Trinidad they have what is known as a Calypsonian Carnival, in which the various native groups down there vie with one another musically in order to find out who's the best extemporaneous composer of them all. Yes, and in the year 1955, Lord Invader and his 12 Penetrators took the title with this next song based on a theme by Goethe involving the Dance of the Dead. Well, Invader could only draw from experience, so he called it, of course, Zombie Jamboree, the song that killed Calypso.
Of course. Porque no? Well, now, back to back, belly to belly, well, I don't give a damn, 'cause I done that already. Back to back, belly to belly, at the Zombie Jamboree. Now he called us back to back, belly to belly, well, I don't give a damn, 'cause I done that already. Back to back, belly to belly, at the Zombie Jamboree.
Okay, so that's the Kingston Trio's version. Now the original I think it was Bob Shane or John Stewart, I forget who it was with the group, actually gave the composer credit. Wasn't that wonderful that he did that? So the original came out in 1953, as he said, by Winston O'Connor, who went by the name of Lord Intruder. He was from the country of Tobago, which shares the island with Trinidad. So in this version, we find out that the Kingston Trio kind of did something with the title, because the original had nothing to do with zombies. It was called the Jumbie Jamboree. And a jumbie, well, it was kind of the same thing. A jumbie was an evil spirit who was thought to cause wild dancing in their victims. So an early hit version of the song was recorded by a singer by the name of The Charmer. Now, I'm going to reveal who the real person is behind The Charmer's record while we're playing it.
A Jumbie Jamboree took place in a New York cemetery. Was a Jumbie Jamboree took place in Woodlawn Cemetery. Jumbies from all parts of the island, some of them were great Calypsonian. Since the season was carnival, they got together in Bacchanal and they singing back to back, belly to belly. I don't care a damn, I done that already. Back to back, belly to belly was a Jumbie Jamboree. I hear the chorus, back to back, belly to belly. I don't care a damn, I done that already. Back to back, belly to belly was a Jumbie Jamboree. Female Jumbie wouldn't behave. See how she jumping on the grave. In one hand she holding a quarter rum, with the other hand she knocking conga drum. The lead singer start to make his rhyme, while the other Jumbie rattling their bones in time. One bystander had this to say: it was a thrill to see the Jumbie break away. And what they singing? Back to back, belly to belly. I don't care a damn, I done dead already. Back to back, belly to belly was a Jumbie Jamboree. I hear the chorus, back to back, belly to belly. I don't care a damn, I done dead already. Back to back, belly to belly was a Jumbie Jamboree.
Okay, so The future religious leader and activist and noted anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan had an early career as a calypso singer. I wanted to skip past this one because we're kind of running out of time. I'd like to take some questions as well. But Stone Cold Dead in the Market, a duet by Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Jordan, was a big hit in 1946. Top 10 hit for Decca Records. The original was recorded by Wilmoth Houdini and his Royal Calypso Orchestra, called He Had It Coming. It's about domestic violence, actually. It's about a guy who beat his wife up, you know. That was it. Stone Cold Dead into Market. And then the next one was Matilda by Harry Belafonte. You know that one, right? Okay, well, this was the song about a girl who fled Trinidad to Venezuela with her man's money. Another song popularized by Harry Belafonte, who often spent 20 minutes on the song in concert performance. He got everyone to sing along with him. You know, women over 40, and then nobody would sing. He'd say that. So the original version, his original version from 1953, was really orchestrated by RCA Victor music director Hugo Winterhalter. This song goes back again to a Calypsonian from Trinidad by the name of Cecil Anderson, who called himself the Duke of Iron, first recorded by him in 1946. So let's listen to the original version of Matilda, and then I'll take some questions.
Oh Lord, it is Matilda. Believe me, friends, it's Matilda. What it is at all? Matilda, she take me money and run Venezuela. Everybody. Matilda. What it is at all? Matilda. Lord, I got a fall. Matilda, she take my money and run Venezuela. $5,000, friends, are lost. The woman even sell me cat and horse, oh Lord. Matilda, she take me money and run Venezuela. Everybody. Matilda. What it is at all? Matilda. Lord, I got a fall. Matilda, she take my money and run Venezuela. Well, the money was to buy me house and land. Then she dropped a serious plan, oh Lord. Matilda, she take me money and run Venezuela. Everybody. Matilda. What it is at all? Matilda. Lord, I got a fall. Matilda, she take my money and run Venezuela. Oh, the money was quite inside me bed, shook up in the mattress right below my head. Don't you know that Matilda done find me money and run Venezuela? Everybody. Matilda. What it is at all? Matilda. Lord, I got a fall. Matilda, take my money and run Venezuela.
See, this was very close to Belafonte's version, and it really established this call and response idea that he had in his concerts that he did throughout his career. Took it directly from this record and made it his own. And I think Cecil Anderson did get royalty credit for these.
Off my head. He said, boy, no money inside your bed. Don't you know that Matilda done take your money and run Venezuela? Everybody. Matilda. What it is at all? Matilda. Lord, I got a fall. Matilda, take my money and run Venezuela. When I put my hand was all in vain. On the spot to get a serious pain. Oh Lord, I mean, Matilda, she take my money and run with invader. Everybody. Matilda. What it is at all? Matilda. Lord, I got a fall. So never me friends to love again, because all my money gone in vain. Oh Lord, Matilda, she take my money and run Venezuela. Everybody. Matilda. What it is at all? Matilda. Bring it out, boys. Matilda, take my money and run Venezuela.
I was told that you will be hearing some steel bands when you go to Jamaica, which is something you should really pay attention to. Whenever I go to an exotic location, I immediately look for the music, the traditional music, not the music for tourists. Try and find the traditional music if you can. And I'm going to help you look for this kind of music in my next 3 presentations, but 2 of them are going to come after the fact, unfortunately, because I'm only doing these on C days. But if you find something, maybe you'll recognize it in my presentations on Aruba. Aruba I will be doing before the fact. That's the day after tomorrow. I'll talk about the contemporary music, contemporary traditional music of Aruba. And then after we finish with the ABC Islands, I'll do a presentation on the music of Bonaire, the traditional music of Bonaire, and also in preparation for our trip to Jamaica, again, a little analysis of how reggae came to be, and learning the kinds of music combining traditional Jamaican music combining with American music that formed this new invigorating brand of musical entertainment in the 1960s. And finally, we'll hear some wonderful music from Curacao, which has a classical music piano tradition that not many people are aware of. That they were a couple of the performers down there, the composers on Curacao, were enamored with the music of Frédéric Chopin and wrote their own music with this kind of Caribbean lilt to it, combined with African rhythms. So you'll hear all this gumbo kind of music in our ensuing at-sea cruise days. So I hope you'll join me for those. Look for the times. It's going to be right here in your daily bulletin. And I hope to see all of you again. So if there are any questions, let me know. Yes?